Hey everybody, week 3, and hopefully you watched the video, If You Give a Pig a Pancake. And so we're going to jump into logical and conditional statements. In the book, you should have noticed that there were a lot of if-then statements. And I took a little creative license and I did rewrite some of it to fit into an if-then statement. But we are going to be spending some time talking about those. Some of you are going to love this. Some of you are going to feel like you've come into an English class rather than a math class. It is a part of geometry. And so let's just jump on in. That is your objective, and I will let you look at that and read over that. The biggest thing is we're going to talk about converse, inverse, and contrapositive. And if you want to feel confident that you have a good handle on the material, you'll want to score an 80 or higher on the assessments that we do. So, what are conditional statements? Again, kind of already talked about it. They are if-then statements. If you give a pig a pancake, then she'll want some maple syrup. There are a couple vocab words that you need to make sure that you're familiar with. The first one is hypothesis. The hypothesis is the statement after the word if. Key right there. It does not include the word if. We also will use the letter P to represent the hypothesis. And we will get more into that tomorrow or when you get to the next section when we start talking about symbolic form. The conclusion is the statement after the word then. You don't include the word then. It's whatever comes after the word then. And the letter that we're going to use for that is Q. There is a way to notate this, okay? And if you look, it's P and then an arrow and then Q. You will also see it written like this with just a single arrow pointing to the right. But the way you read that, okay, you don't say P arrow Q. Okay, the way you read that is either you say P implies Q or P results in Q. And remember, P is just an abbreviation for hypothesis, and Q is just the abbreviation for conclusion. So let's look at an example. If you give a pig a pancake, then she will want some maple syrup. There's your conditional, there's your if, there's your then. That makes it a conditional statement. Now, we just talked about the hypothesis. Okay, the hypothesis is what comes directly after the word if. So your hypothesis is you give a pig a pancake. Notice I did not include the word if. If you include the word if, it's marked wrong. The hypothesis comes after the word if. And remember, our symbol, we call that P. The conclusion is what comes after the word then. So again, if you look at my conditional statement, she will want some maple syrup is my conclusion. So not super hard, but just remember, don't include the word if, don't include the word then. And the letter that we use to represent that is Q. And again, that is going to be because we're going to be doing some things with symbolic form Math people are famous for trying to find a symbol for everything. They happen to pick P for the hypothesis and Q for the conclusion. So there are different types of conditional statements. You have the conditional, just the one you start out with. So that would be, if you give a pig a pancake, then she'll want some maple syrup. And then we can take that original conditional statement and we can write the converse, the inverse, and the contrapositive. And we're going to take a look at how to do each one of those. So here's how we write the converse. And this will make more sense when you guys see an example in just a second. To write the converse, you transpose the P and Q. Okay. Transpose is just a fancy word for switch. Okay. So we switch the P and the Q. So we switch our hypothesis and our conclusion. And when they say switch, they mean physically move them. The notation is Q arrow P, and again, you will see it written as Q, just that little plain arrow and P. But we don't read it like that. We say if Q, then P. So let's look at this. Look at an example. Our original conditional statement is, if you give a pig a pancake, then she will want some maple syrup. So to write the converse, and yes, you're going to be writing sentences. So a couple things. Make sure you start a sentence with a capital letter and end a sentence with punctuation, typically a period. So let's write the converse. This tells me I need to switch my P and Q, my hypothesis and conclusion. And if you need to, starting out, you can label your parts. You give a pig a pancake. That is my P, my hypothesis. She will want some maple syrup. That is my conclusion. And I'm actually going to switch them to write my converse. So my converse is going to read if, because converse is a conditional statement, so it's going to have if and then in it. But now we're going to say, we're going to transpose or switch if, and we can say she or you can say a pig, if she will want some maple syrup. And it may sound a little awkward because we usually don't say will want. So my conclusion has now moved to the front. Then, because again, a converse is a conditional statement. Then you write, you give a pig a pancake. So I actually switched my hypothesis and conclusion. My hypothesis moved to the back, and my conclusion, my Q, moved to the front. So, keyword for converse. Okay, shortcut word. When you hear converse, switch should pop into your head. Okay. You switch your hypothesis and conclusion. The next type of conditional statement is inverse. Okay. And inverse has a different meaning. Inverse means negate both your P and your Q. Negate just means you take your hypothesis and you take your conclusion and you make it mean the opposite. Now, that may sound a little confusing, but most of the time it means you're just going to insert the word not into your sentence. And again, it'll make more sense in just a minute when we look at the example. The notation for it, okay, is right here. Okay. It looks like a squiggly and then a P and then your arrow and then a squiggly and then a Q. Again, math people love abbreviations and shortcuts, okay, because they don't like writing a lot of words. We're going to be writing a lot of words starting out, Okay, when we get further along, then you guys will be switching over to using this symbolic form. But right now, we just have to learn all of the symbols and how they work before we can go there. How we actually read that, okay, because we don't say squiggle P, arrow squiggle Q, is we say, if not P, then not Q. And again, that sounds really weird, but that's how we say it. So let's look at an example so this actually makes some sense. If you give a pig a pancake, then she'll want some maple syrup. That's my original conditional statement. Now I want to write the inverse. The inverse means negate. So I have to change the meaning of you give a pig a pancake, because again, if you need to, label, this is my hypothesis. She will want some maple syrup is my conclusion. Now, you give a pig a pancake. We want to make that mean the opposite. How do I make it mean the opposite? You give a pig a pancake. Well, I do. You don't give a pig a pancake. That has the opposite meaning. Either you do give or you don't give. The opposite is don't. So basically all I'm doing is inserting not. I did have to tweak it a little grammatically, okay, because what I don't want to do is I don't want to say, if you not give a pig a pancake. That's not how we speak, and that's not how we would write that. We would say something along the lines, if you don't or do not give a pig a pancake, so I did insert the word not, okay, but grammatically I tweaked it just a little so it wouldn't sound awkward or choppy or incorrect. So you give a pig a pancake. I have to negate that for the inverse. So that becomes, if you don't give a pig a pancake. Then, because remember, inverse is a conditional statement. It has to start with if, and it has to have then in it. Now we have to negate, she will want some maple syrup. Okay. So how would we negate that? We would say, she will not want some maple syrup. And that one we didn't have to do any tweaking because it not goes in there very nicely. Okay. It doesn't sound weird, awkward, or incorrect. And could you say won't? Sure. Then she won't want some maple syrup. Okay. We're not going to get hung up on you said will not, she said won't. They both mean the same thing. So the inverse is negate. If you don't give a pig a pancake, then she will not want some maple syrup. Again, your key word, because I'm about keywords and mnemonics and ways to make things easy to remember. Most people just say keyword is not. Some people like to say I use negate as my keyword. Okay, and remember, negate means make the meaning opposite. The third type of conditional statement is the contrapositive. And notice it's the longest word. And what you're going to find is that we have to do the most with this one. To write the contrapositive, we transpose, remember, switch, and negate the P and Q. So again, got some keywords right here. Contrapositive, switch and negate. There's the notation. The little thing that looks like a squiggly is the symbol for negation. Okay. That's what they use to show that that piece has been negated. And then you have your arrow and then your P. Again, you read it, if not Q, then not P. If not Q, then not P. So again, example, there's my original conditional statement. Now I have to switch it and I have to negate both parts. So if you need to, you give a pig a pancake is my P, my hypothesis. My what comes after the word if. She will want some maple syrup is my Q. It's my conclusion. It comes after the word then. So to write the contrapositive, I have to switch my P and Q and I have to negate them. So I always start with if. So I switch them. So my Q is my conclusion is going to move forward to the front. So if she will, and I got to negate, switch and negate. If she will not want some maple syrup, and again, that sounds a little awkward. It's not wrong, but we usually don't speak like that. Then, okay, so I switched, moved my Q up front. Now I'm going to do my P. If not Q, then not P. Then you, now I got to negate this because it's switch and negate. Then you don't, do not, will not, won't, however you want to negate it. It all means the same thing. Give a pig a pancake. So contrapositive, switch and negate. If she will not want some maple syrup, then you don't give a pig a pancake. And again, you can use won't, don't, do not. The only thing you can't do is add words in there that aren't in the sentence as far as changing the meaning. Like we can't be talking about giving a pig a pancake, and in your sentence you're talking about giving a dog a Dorito. Okay? You can't add those kinds of words, but you can tweak it to make it flow grammatically better. Or, like I said, you can use contractions. Will not, do not, won't, don't. But you can't change the meaning. Okay, like I said, you can't be talking about a pig and then you start writing about a dog. Now, that's a lot of information in a short period of time. Okay, and notice I say, make sure you know how to do CCIC. Excuse me. CCIC just means conditional, converse, inverse, contrapositive. Okay. But you do need to go back and study them and make sure you've got your key words. We're going to practice a little bit more in a minute. Okay, but you got to be able to, when I say converse, okay, switch should pop into your head. When I say inverse, negate should pop into your head, or not. When I say contrapositive, switch and negate is what you want to pop into your head. Okay, and if you take a few minutes and study them and just memorize that, this will go a lot quicker for you, and you'll find that it's really not that hard, but you got to make sure that you know which is which. Because it's easy to mix them up, but they have totally different formats, so you have to make sure you know which word goes with what.